What happens when determination meets opportunity? When 15-year-old Jasmine Reyes decided to build a rocket from scrap parts in her McAllen, Texas backyard, she never imagined it would catch the eye of the world's most famous rocket engineer. But sometimes, the greatest journeys begin with a single spark of inspiration. Jasmine Reyes sat cross-legged on her bed, eyes glued to her laptop screen. The countdown echoed through her small bedroom. 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. The SpaceX Falcon 9. Rocket roared to life on her screen, flames blasting from its engines as it pushed away from the launch pad at Boca Chica Beach. Jasmine held her breath as the rocket climbed higher and higher, piercing through the clouds into the bright blue Texas sky. "Wow," she whispered, leaning closer to the screen. Her dark eyes reflected the rocket's fiery trail. Just 80 miles from her home in McAllen, history was being made. Again. And all Jasmine could do was watch it on a screen. The 15-year-old tucked a strand of black hair behind her ear and paused the video. Her room was getting dark as the sun set outside, but she didn't turn on the light. From downstairs, she could hear her parents arguing about money again. "We can't keep going like this, Maria." Her father's tired voice carried up the stairs. "The plant is closing for good. They're not bringing those jobs back." Jasmine sighed. Her dad had worked at the auto parts plant for 12 years. Now, suddenly, he was jobless. Her mom had picked up extra night shifts at the hospital, working as a nurse until her feet swelled and her eyes grew dark with tiredness. Jasmine looked around her small bedroom. The walls were covered not with pop star posters, but with rocket diagrams she had drawn herself, pictures of the International Space Station, and a worn photo of Katherine Johnson, the NASA mathematician who had calculated flight paths for the first American astronauts. Her gaze settled on a half-finished sketch of a rocket she'd been designing. It wasn't anything fancy, just something she'd been doodling between classes. But looking at it now, an idea sparked in her mind. "I'm going to build my own rocket," she whispered to herself, the words feeling both scary and exciting as they left her mouth. She pulled out her notebook, the special one with the stars on the cover that her grandmother had given her before she passed away last year. Opening to a fresh page, Jasmine began to write, her pencil flying across the paper. If the rich guys at SpaceX could build rockets, why couldn't she? Okay, maybe not a massive rocket like Falcon 9, but something real. Something that would actually fly. Something that would make her parents smile again. "Jasmine, pay attention, please." Mr. Delgado's voice snapped Jasmine out of her daydream. She'd been sketching rocket fins in her math notebook instead of solving the equations on the board. "Sorry, Mr. Delgado," she mumbled, quickly flipping to a new page. After class, as students rushed out for lunch, Mr. Delgado called her to his desk. "What was so interesting that you couldn't focus on logarithms today?" he asked, not unkindly. Jasmine hesitated, then showed him her notebook. "I'm designing a rocket, sir." Instead of scolding her, Mr. Delgado adjusted his glasses and studied her drawings with genuine interest. "These are quite detailed. How long have you been interested in rocketry?" "Forever," Jasmine said with a shrug. "But now I want to actually build one. A real one, not just a paper model." Mr. Delgado nodded slowly. "Wait here," he said, walking to his office behind the classroom. He returned with a worn book. "Model Rocketry, the Complete Guide. This helped me when I was younger than you," he said, handing it to her. "Bring it back when you're done. And Jasmine, next time, try to keep the rocket science for after my class, okay?" Jasmine hugged the book to her chest, nodding quickly. Yes, sir. Thank you. For the next 2 weeks, Jasmine read everything she could find about rockets. She watched videos from amateur rocket builders, studied the principles of thrust and aerodynamics, and filled 3 notebooks with designs and calculations. She started small, building a simple model rocket from a kit she bought with saved lunch. Money! It flew 300 feet high and came down with a tiny parachute. Her little brother Marco chased after it, his face lit up with excitement. "That was awesome, Jazz!" he shouted, bringing the recovered rocket back to her. "Can we do it again?" But Jasmine was already thinking bigger. The model kit was just practice. She wanted to build something original, something that would reach higher than any model rocket she'd seen before. "I want to hit at least 3,000 feet, she told Marco one evening as they sat in their backyard, looking up at the stars. Marco's eyes widened. "Is that even possible? Wouldn't you need, like, super expensive stuff?" Jasmine shook her head. "Not if I'm smart about it. I have been researching amateur rocket builders online. Some of them make amazing rockets from regular materials." The next day after school, Jasmine started collecting parts. She found aluminum pipes behind a construction site with permission from the foreman after she explained her project. She rescued an old pressure cooker from Mrs. Gonzalez next door, who was throwing it away. She salvaged electrical components from broken appliances her dad brought home to fix. "What's all this junk?" her mother asked one evening, finding Jasmine's collection in a box under her bed. "It's not junk, Mom. It's rocket parts," Jasmine explained. Her mother sighed. "Mija, we don't have money for these science projects right now. Your father is still looking for work, and—" "I'm not asking for money," Jasmine interrupted. "I'm using stuff people were throwing away. Please, Mom, this is important to me." Her mother looked tired, the lines around her eyes deeper than they used to be. But she nodded. "Just be careful. No explosions in my house, understand?" "No explosions," Jasmine promised, crossing her heart. Marco proved to be a loyal assistant, even if he didn't understand all the science. He helped carry heavy parts and kept lookout when Jasmine snuck into the junkyard to find more materials. "You know we could get in trouble for this, right?" he whispered as they squeezed through a hole in the fence. "We're just taking stuff they don't want anymore," Jasmine replied, though she felt a twinge of guilt. "Besides, we're recycling. That's good for the planet." Late at night, after finishing her homework and helping with dishes, Jasmine worked on her blueprint. She measured each component carefully, calculated fuel mixtures, and designed a recovery system that would bring the rocket safely back to Earth. Her eyes burned from tiredness, and her fingers were stained with pencil lead and marker. The house was quiet, everyone else long asleep. Outside her window, the stars shimmered in the Texas sky, seeming to encourage her onward. Finally, at 2:17 a.m., Jasmine completed the final details of her blueprint. She sat back and looked at her work, spread across her desk under the single lamp. It wasn't perfect, and there would be problems to solve along the way, but it was a start. "This will work," she whispered to herself, tracing the outline of her creation with her fingertip. It has to work. Tomorrow she would begin building her dream, piece by piece, and maybe, just maybe, her rocket would fly high enough to change everything. Tomorrow came faster than Jasmine expected. Her alarm blared at 6:30 a.m., and for a moment she couldn't remember why she felt so excited. Then it hit her. Today, she would start building her rocket. Despite getting only 4 hours of sleep, Jasmine jumped out of bed with energy. She quickly dressed, grabbed a piece of toast, and was out the door before her mother could remind her to eat a proper breakfast. School. dragged by that day. Minutes felt like hours as she sat through English, history, and math. During lunch, she pulled out her blueprint and made a list of what she needed to get first. Earth to Jasmine. Hello? Zoe, her best friend since third grade, waved a hand in front of her face. You haven't heard a word I've said, have you? Sorry. Jasmine folded her paper quickly. What were you saying? Zoe rolled her eyes but smiled. I was asking if you wanted to come over Saturday to watch movies, but clearly you've got other plans. She nodded toward the folded blueprint. Still on that rocket thing? It's not just a thing, Jasmine said. I finished the blueprint last night. I'm going to build it for real. Zoe studied her friend's face. You're serious, aren't you? You're actually going to build a rocket in your backyard. Yep. Jasmine took a bite of her apple. You're either going to be famous or blow up our neighborhood. Zoe laughed. Either way, I'm in. What do you need help with? After school, Mr. Delgado caught Jasmine as she was heading out. How's the rocket coming along? He asked. Jasmine explained her progress and showed him the materials list she'd made. Mr. Delgado looked it over, nodding thoughtfully. You know, he said, lowering his voice, the school workshop has most of these tools. If you wanted to use them, I could let you in after. Hours sometimes, just between us. Jasmine's eyes widened. Really? That would be amazing. On one condition, Mr. Delgado held up a finger. I teach you proper safety first. No shortcuts. Deal, Jasmine agreed instantly. Days turned into weeks, and a routine formed. School, chores, rocket building, sleep, repeat. The Rhea's backyard transformed into Jasmine's workshop. She set up a folding table under the old oak tree and organized her growing collection of parts in plastic bins. In the school workshop, Mr. Delgado taught her how to use tools she'd never touched before. She learned to weld metal, to measure with precision, and to test each component before moving on. Always double-check your work, he reminded her. In rocketry, small mistakes can lead to big failures. At home, money got tighter. One night, Jasmine heard her parents talking in hushed voices in the kitchen. We might have to sell the house, Maria, her father said, his voice heavy with defeat. I've applied everywhere, but there's nothing. Give it more time, Carlos, her mother replied. Something will come up. Jasmine crept back to her room, her stomach in knots. The house, the only home she'd ever known. The backyard where she was building her rocket. They couldn't lose it. That night, she worked until her fingers bled, wrapping wire connections until her eyes blurred. She was more determined than ever to finish her rocket. Maybe, somehow, it would help her family. You need fuel that won't kill you, Zoe pointed out as they scrolled through rocket videos on YouTube. Some of these guys are using stuff that could blow off their fingers. Jasmine nodded. I'm going with a sugar-based fuel. It's safer than the other options. She had been saving her lunch money for weeks, eating only what she brought from home. Finally, she had enough to order the chemicals she needed from a science supply store online. When the package arrived, Marco stared at it with wide eyes. Is that the stuff that makes it go up? Jasmine nodded. But we have to mix it just right. Want to help? Marco became her loyal assistant, carrying tools, holding parts in place while she worked, and keeping watch for their parents when she was doing something particularly messy or loud. Twice, they had close calls. Once, when her mother came home early from her shift and nearly discovered the rocket parts hidden under a tarp. Another time, when her fuel mixture test made more smoke than expected, forcing them to fan the backyard frantically before neighbors noticed. 3 months into the project, Jasmine had completed the rocket body and was working on the guidance system. It was made from an old smartphone and some sensors she'd salvaged from broken electronics. "How will you know where it goes?" Zoe asked one afternoon as she helped Jasmine carry supplies. "The phone's GPS will track its position," Jasmine explained. "And I'm installing a small camera so we can see what it sees during flight." Zoe shook her head in amazement. "You know, normal 15-year-olds just obsess over TikTok and sneakers." Jasmine shrugged. "Normal is boring." That evening, when her mother came to check on her, Jasmine quickly shoved rocket components under her bed. "Still studying?" her mom asked, looking tired after her 12-hour shift. "Yeah, just homework," Jasmine lied, feeling a pang of guilt. The half-built guidance system lay hidden just inches away. Her mother smiled and kissed her forehead. "My smart girl, always working so hard." After her mom left, Jasmine pulled out the rocket parts and stared at them. The guilt remained, but alongside it was determination. Someday, this rocket would soar into the sky, and when it did, her parents would understand. Someday, this rocket would make her family proud. For now, though, it remained her secret. A dream taking shape, piece by piece, in the shadow of an oak tree in McAllen, Texas. Word about Rocket Girl spread through McAllen Middle School like wildfire. It started with whispers in the hallways and curious glances in the cafeteria. "I heard she's building a real rocket that can go to space," one sixth grader told his friends. "My cousin says she's working for NASA secretly," another claimed. Jasmine tried to ignore the rumors, but it wasn't always easy. Some kids, especially the boys in her science class, made it their mission to remind her that girls can't be rocket scientists. "My dad says women aren't good at math and engineering," Derek Martinez announced loudly when Jasmine answered a question, correctly in class. "They don't have the right kind of brains for it." Jasmine's face burned, but she held her head high. "Tell that to Katherine Johnson, or Mae Jemison, or any of the women engineers at SpaceX and NASA." Despite the teasing, Jasmine noticed something strange happening at lunch. Younger students, especially girls, started gathering by the chain-link fence that separated the school from her usual lunch spot. They watched silently as she sketched rocket designs or read through Mr. Delgado's rocketry books. One day, a small girl with glasses approached her. "Is it true you're building a real rocket?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jasmine nodded. "I'm trying to." "I want to build robots," the girl confessed. "But my brother says it's for boys." Jasmine smiled at her. "Your brother is wrong. You can build anything you want." The girl beamed. From that day on, Jasmine found herself surrounded by a small group of admirers during lunch breaks. She started bringing her rocket designs to show them, explaining how thrust worked or why the IBA shape of fins mattered. The science department got a new teacher in April. Ms. Rivera was young, with short black hair and bright red glasses. Rumors said she used to work for NASA before becoming a teacher. Jasmine tried not to stare when she passed her in the hallway. A real NASA person? Here in McAllen? One afternoon, as Jasmine worked in the school workshop under Mr. Delgado's supervision, Ms. Rivera walked in. "So this is where you've been hiding your prodigy," Ms. Rivera said to Mr. Delgado with a smile. Mr. Delgado laughed. "I'm just providing the space. The talent is all hers." Ms. Rivera walked over to examine the rocket components spread across the workbench. She picked up Jasmine's blueprint, studying it with a professional eye. "Your calculations are impressive," she said finally, "but your fuel mixture ratio is off. That's why your test engines keep burning too quickly." Jasmine's heart skipped. "How did you know my engines burn too fast?" Ms. Rivera smiled. "The residue on those test nozzles." She pointed to the small metal cones Jasmine had been experimenting with. Too much oxidizer in your mix. It turned out the rumors were true. Ms. Rivera had worked as an engineering specialist at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston for 5 years before deciding to teach. I wanted to catch young minds before they decided science was too hard or not for them, she explained. From that day on, Jasmine had 2 mentors. Mr. Delgado continued teaching her workshop skills, while Ms. Rivera helped with the technical aspects of rocket design. If you're serious about this, Ms. Rivera told her, you should document your progress. Start a social media account. Show your work. Who would want to watch me build a rocket? Jasmine asked. Ms. Rivera's eyes twinkled. You'd be surprised. Jasmine created a social media account called Rocket Girl Texas and posted her first video that weekend. She showed her blueprint, explained her goals, and demonstrated a small engine test. At first, only a handful of local people followed her, mostly students from school and a few teachers. But then something surprising happened. People started sharing her videos. An engineering student from UT Austin commented with suggestions for her recovery system. A model rocket enthusiast from Houston offered tips on launch safety. Her follower count jumped from 20 to 200 in a week. By the end of the month, she had over 500 followers, with people tuning in from as far away as Europe and Asia. You're famous, Marco declared, as he helped her set up for another video. Not famous, Jasmine corrected him. Just connecting with people who like rockets. A local news station caught wind of her project after her science teacher showed her videos to a friend who worked there. They sent a reporter to interview Jasmine in her backyard workshop. The 2-minute segment aired on the evening news, calling her McAllen's Hidden Genius, and featuring clips of her explaining how her rocket would work. The reporter seemed impressed that Jasmine had built so much from recycled and salvaged parts. Some people might look at this and see junk, Jasmine told the camera, gesturing to her workbench of mismatched parts. I see possibilities. The exposure brought more followers, more attention, and more pressure. Jasmine tried to stay focused on her goal, but it wasn't always easy. Some days, when an experiment failed or a calculation didn't work out, she wondered if everyone was just waiting for her to fail. You can do this, she reminded herself during those moments. One step at a time. One morning in May, a package arrived at the Reyes house. It was addressed to Jasmine Reyes, rocket engineer. Inside, Jasmine found high-quality materials she had mentioned needing in one of her videos. Aircraft-grade aluminum, precision sensors, and special heat-resistant material for the rocket nozzle. Things she could never afford to buy herself. Simple note was included. Keep reaching for the stars. There was no name, no return address. Jasmine stood in her backyard, holding the mysterious gift, a strange feeling washing over her. Someone out there, someone she didn't even know, believed in her enough to send these expensive materials. Who do you think sent it? Marco asked, examining the package with wide eyes. Jasmine shook her head, too overwhelmed to speak. It didn't matter who sent it. What mattered was that her dream now had new fuel, not just the chemicals that would power her rocket, but the belief of strangers who wanted to see her succeed. With renewed determination, she got back to work. The mysterious gift of high-quality materials gave Jasmine's project a huge boost. With Ms. Rivera's guidance, she redesigned parts of her rocket to take advantage of the aircraft-grade aluminum and specialized components. Her social media followers doubled, then tripled, as people tuned in to watch her progress. Look at these comments, Zoe said one afternoon, scrolling through Jasmine's latest video. Someone from MIT watched your fuel mixture test. MIT. Jasmine tried to stay humble, but inside, she glowed with pride. Her rocket, which she'd named Esperanza after her grandmother's favorite word, was really taking shape. The body tube gleamed. In the Texas sun, the fins were perfectly aligned, and the engine mount was nearly complete. "I think we can test the new fuel mixture tomorrow," she told Marco, as they cleaned up the backyard workshop one evening. "If it works, we're getting close to a launch date." Marco pumped his fist in the air. "Awesome! Can I tell my friends?" Jasmine laughed. "Not yet. Let's make sure it works first." The next day after school, Jasmine set up for her fuel test. She had developed a new mixture based on Ms. Rivera's suggestions, one that should burn longer and more evenly. She carefully measured the chemicals, mixing them exactly as her calculations had specified. "Stand back," she warned Marco, who was filming for her social media account. "This one might be more powerful than the last test." She connected the ignition wire, walked to a safe distance, and counted down. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. She pressed the button. For a split second, nothing happened. Then, with a whoosh that was louder than she expected, the test engine ignited. But something was wrong. Instead of the controlled burn she'd calculated, the flame sputtered, then suddenly flared with a bright flash. Jasmine had just enough time to yell, "Get down!" before a loud pop sent sparks flying everywhere. One spark landed on her sleeve, another singed her eyebrow, and a third caught in her hair. She batted at the flames frantically as Marco dropped the camera and ran to help. "Jasmine, what's happening?" Her mother's panicked voice cut through the chaos. She had just returned from her shift and rushed into the backyard at the sound of the explosion. Time seemed to freeze as her mother took in the scene. The smoking engine on the test stand, the scattered chemicals, Jasmine patting out small flames on her clothes, and her singed eyebrows and hair. "Dios mío!" her mother gasped, rushing to check Jasmine for injuries. Finding only minor burns, her shock quickly turned to anger. "What were you thinking? You could have been killed, or burned down the house." Before Jasmine could explain, her father's truck pulled into the driveway. He had been at a job interview and returned just in time to witness the aftermath. His face went pale when Maria explained what had happened. "No more rockets," he said firmly that evening, his voice shaking with fear for his daughter. "It's too dangerous. I'm sorry, Jasmine, but this project is over." "But, Dad," Jasmine began. "No," he cut her off. "I know this means a lot to you, but your safety means more to us. What if we hadn't been home? What if that explosion had been bigger?" Tears streamed down Jasmine's face as her parents packed away her rocket parts and stored them in the garage. Her followers sent message after message, asking what had happened, when her regular updates suddenly stopped. She couldn't bring herself to respond. For 2 weeks, Jasmine moved through her days like a ghost. She went to school, did her homework, and came home. But the spark that had always lit her eyes was gone. Her grades dropped. Mr. Delgado and Ms. Rivera exchanged worried glances when she stopped raising her hand in class. "Maybe my dad is right," she told Zoe during lunch. "Maybe it was stupid to think I could build a real rocket." "That doesn't sound like the Jasmine I know," Zoe replied, nudging her friend. "The Jasmine I know doesn't give up." But Jasmine couldn't see a way forward. Her dream seemed as far away as the stars themselves. One evening, Jasmine heard noises from the backyard. Looking out her bedroom window, she was surprised to see her father standing over her half-finished rocket, which he had taken out of storage. Curious, She crept downstairs and out the back door. "Dad, what are you doing?" Her father looked up, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Tell me about how this works," he said quietly, pointing to the engine mount. Taken aback, Jasmine approached, cautiously. "Well, this part holds the engine in place while allowing the exhaust to flow through this nozzle," she explained, pointing to each component. "The heat-resistant material here prevents the whole thing from melting when the fuel burns." Her father nodded, examining the craftsmanship. "And this guidance system?" Jasmine's excitement grew as she explained each part of her rocket. The fuel system, the guidance mechanism, the recovery parachute. Her father listened intently, asking questions that showed he was really trying to understand. "You know," Hitoe said finally, "I worked with engines my whole life at the plant. Never rocket engines, but many of the principles are the same. The way you've designed this fuel delivery system, it's clever. Professional, even." Jasmine blinked in surprise. "Really?" Her father nodded, a hint of pride in his eyes. "The problem with your test wasn't the design, it was the safety precautions." He looked around the backyard. No proper containment area, no fire extinguisher nearby, no protective gear. He fell silent for a long moment, and Jasmine held her breath. "If we do this," he said finally, "we do it safely, and I help you." Jasmine couldn't believe her ears. "You mean, we build proper safety equipment first. Then we continue with the rocket." Jasmine threw her arms around her father, hugging him so hard she nearly knocked him over. "Thank you, Dad. Thank you. Thank you." Her mother took more convincing, but seeing Carlos and Jasmine working together, the first time her husband had shown real enthusiasm since losing his job, eventually won her over. With her father's help, Jasmine rebuilt her workshop with proper safety equipment. They constructed a small testing area behind the shed with concrete blocks to contain any unexpected explosions. Her father insisted on fire extinguishers, protective goggles, and heat-resistant gloves. His mechanical knowledge helped solve problems that had stumped Jasmine for weeks. His steady hands were perfect for the delicate welding work needed on the smaller components. "You've got a natural talent for this," he told her one evening as they adjusted the fuel mixture ratio. "You remind me of myself at your age, always taking things apart to see how they worked. Difference is, you know how to put them back together better than they were before." 3 weeks after the accident, they were ready to test the engine again. This time, with all safety measures in place. Jasmine's parents watched from a safe distance as she initiated the countdown. The test engine burned perfectly for exactly the amount of time their calculations had predicted. 43 seconds of steady, controlled thrust. As the flame died out, leaving only a wisp of smoke, Jasmine and her father exchanged a look of pure joy. He held up his hand for a high five, which she enthusiastically returned. "We might actually pull this off," Carlos Reyes said, looking at his daughter with new respect in his eyes. For the first time, Jasmine allowed herself to truly believe it too. The next 2 months flew by in a blur of activity. With her father's help, Jasmine made incredible progress on the rocket. Every evening after dinner, they would head to the backyard workshop, working side by side until her mother called them in, insisting they needed sleep. "Just 5 more minutes," they would call back in unison, making her mother shake her head. With a smile, Jasmine resumed her social media updates, now featuring her father as her engineering consultant. Her followers loved the father-daughter team, and their subscriber count climbed past 2,000. "My dad used to think girls couldn't be engineers," one comment read. "After watching your videos together, he's helping me build my own science project." Messages like these warmed Jasmine's heart even more than the technical compliments. The rocket, Esperanza, now stood 6 feet tall, gleaming with promise. The body was made mostly from recycled materials, but it looked surprisingly professional. The fins were perfectly aligned, the parachute system was thoroughly tested, and the engine had passed every test with flying colors. "I think she's ready," Jasmine announced one Friday evening in late July, patting the rocket's smooth side. Her father stepped back to admire their work. "I believe you're right. Launching a rocket of this size required special permission and a key, suitable location. Mr. Delgado came through for them again, helping secure permission to use an empty field outside town that belonged to his brother-in-law. "It's perfect," Jasmine said when they visited the site. "Flat, open, no power lines or trees nearby." Ms. Rivera helped with the final safety checks and launch procedures. "You'll need to notify the FAA," she explained, showing Jasmine the proper forms. "Any rocket going above 1,000 feet needs clearance." "Will they really give permission to a 15-year-old? Jasmine worried. "They're giving permission for a launch, not checking your age," Ms. Rivera winked. "Besides, your dad is officially the adult supervisor." The launch date was set for Saturday, August 7th. Jasmine could hardly sleep the night before. She kept running through mental checklists, worrying about every possible thing that could go wrong. What if the parachute didn't deploy? What if the EC engine failed mid-flight? What if, after all this work, Esperanza just sat on the launch pad, refusing to fly? She must have fallen asleep eventually, because the next thing she knew, her alarm was beeping and sunlight was streaming through her window. Launch day had arrived. The Reyes family arrived at the field at 8:08 a.m., giving themselves plenty of time to set up before the 10:20 a.m. launch time. Marco helped carry equipment, while their mother set up a folding table with snacks and drinks. Jasmine was surprised to see cars already parked along the dirt road leading to the field. Word had spread about the launch, and people were coming to watch. Mr. Delgado arrived with several students from the science club. Ms. Rivera brought professional recording equipment to document everything. Zoe came with her parents and younger siblings, all wearing homemade Team Rocket Girl t-shirts. By 9:30 a.m., a small crowd had gathered, at least 50 people forming a wide semicircle at a safe distance from the launch pad. Jasmine recognized faces from school, neighbors, and even the reporter from the local TV station who had done the first story about her. "Looks like you're famous after all," her father said, squeezing her shoulder. Jasmine felt sick with nervousness. It was one thing to launch a rocket with just her family watching, but with all these people? What if she failed? "You've done the work," her father reminded her, seeing her anxiety. "You've checked everything twice. Trust your preparation." Jasmine nodded, taking a deep breath. She went through the final checklist with her father. Fuel loaded. Check. Guidance system active. Check. Recovery system armed. Check. Launch controller connected. Check. At 9:55 a.m., they moved back to the control area, a folding table set up 20 yards from the launch pad. Jasmine's hands shook as she prepared to arm the launch controller. Just then, a sleek black car pulled up at the edge of the field. A tall man in sunglasses stepped out and stood at the back of the crowd. Something about him seemed familiar to Jasmine, but she was too focused on the launch to pay much attention. "T-minus 5 minutes, her father announced over the portable speaker system they had set up. The crowd grew quiet, all eyes on the slender rocket standing proudly on its launch pad. Jasmine felt as if her heart might beat out of her chest. "T-minus 1 minute, Carlos called. Jasmine placed her hand on the launch button, protected by a safety cover to prevent accidental triggering. "Rocket is armed and ready for launch," she responded, her voice steadier than she felt. Minus 30 seconds. Jasmine flipped up the safety cover. The small red button seemed to pulse beneath her finger. 20 seconds. She thought of all the hours, all the failures and successes, all the moments that had led to this one. 10 seconds. Marco began counting down loudly from the sidelines, and soon everyone joined in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jasmine pushed the button. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. The crowd fell silent. Jasmine's stomach dropped. Then, with a roar that shook the air, the rocket engines ignited. Bright orange flame shot from the bottom of Esperanza, and, with breathtaking speed, the rocket leapt from the pad. The crowd erupted in cheers as Esperanza shot skyward, leaving a trail of white smoke against the blue Texas sky. Jasmine watched, her hand clutched tightly in her father's, as her creation climbed higher and higher. "Look at her go!" Marco shouted, jumping up and down. Through binoculars, Jasmine tracked the rocket's ascent. Everything was working perfectly. The guidance system kept Esperanza on a straight path as she accelerated, pushing against gravity with every second. At 30 seconds after launch, the rocket was just a tiny dot in the sky. According to Jasmine's calculations, this was when the main engine should cut off, having used its fuel, and the rocket would continue to coast upward until reaching its peak altitude. "Engine cutoff confirmed," she announced, checking the telemetry data on her laptop. "Now we wait for apogee." At precisely 1 minute and 15 seconds after launch, Esperanza reached her maximum height, 3,241 feet, according to the altimeter. This was the moment of truth. "Parachute deployment should happen now," Jasmine said, her voice tense. Everyone held their breath, watching the sky. For several agonizing seconds, they saw nothing. Then someone pointed. "There! I see it!" A tiny speck of red appeared in the sky. The parachute had deployed successfully. A collective sigh of relief swept through the crowd, followed by more cheers. "Systems nominal," Jasmine reported, grinning from ear to ear. "Esperanza is coming. Home." The rocket descended slowly under its parachute, drifting with the light breeze. It landed half a mile away in an open field, exactly as the wind drift calculations had predicted. Jasmine, her father, and Marco raced to recover it, followed by a crowd of excited spectators. When they reached Esperanza, they found her lying peacefully on her side, the parachute spread out like a bright red flower on the green grass. Jasmine carefully disconnected the altimeter and checked the data. 3,241 feet, she announced. "We exceeded our goal by 241 feet. Her father lifted her onto his shoulders as the crowd applauded. Ms. Rivera recorded everything while the TV reporter pushed forward for an interview. "How does it feel to have built and launched a successful rocket at 15? The reporter asked, holding a microphone to Jasmine's face. "Like I can do anything," Jasmine replied, breathless with joy. As the crowd began to disperse and Jasmine packed up her equipment, she noticed the man in sunglasses approaching. Her heart skipped a beat when she recognized him. Not Elon Musk, as her wildest dreams might have imagined, but a face she had seen in SpaceX videos. Jeff Thornton, one of SpaceX's lead engineers. "Jasmine Reyes?" he asked, extending his hand. "That was quite a launch." Jasmine nodded, too stunned to speak. Jeff Thornton handed her a business card with the SpaceX logo. "Mr. Musk saw your videos. He'd like to speak with you." Jasmine took the card with trembling fingers, certain she must be dreaming. "Dad!" Jasmine called, her voice cracking with excitement. "Dad, come here!" Carlos jogged over, still beaming from the successful launch. His smile faltered when he saw the business card in his daughter's hand and the man in sunglasses standing before her. "Mr. Reyes," Jeff Thornton said, extending his hand. "Congratulations on the launch. Very impressive work." Carlos shook his hand cautiously. "Thank you. May I ask who you are?" "Jeff Thornton, senior engineer at SpaceX." He removed his sunglasses, revealing kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. "I was in the area for a conference and received specific instructions to attend your daughter's rocket launch today." "Instructions from who?" Carlos asked, placing a protective hand on Jasmine's shoulder. Jeff smiled. "From Elon Musk himself. He's been following Jasmine's progress online for some time now." The ride home was a blur. Jasmine clutched the business card, reading and rereading the SpaceX logo and contact information printed on its smooth surface. Her mother had 1,000 questions, while Marco kept asking if Elon Musk would give them a free Tesla. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," her father cautioned, though Jasmine could see the pride and excitement in his eyes, too. "We don't even know what this call will be about." But Jasmine knew. In her heart, she felt that everything was about to change. The news of Jasmine's successful rocket launch spread faster than she could have imagined. A video of Esperanza soaring into the sky, captured by one of the students, went viral overnight. Her social media followers jumped from 2,000 to over 50,000 in just 24 hours. Local businesses called with sponsorship offers for her next project. The mayor of McAllen invited her family to City Hall to present her with an award for inspiring scientific achievement. Her school principal announced that Jasmine would be a featured speaker at the next assembly. Through it all, Jasmine kept checking her phone, waiting for the call from SpaceX. Days passed with no word. When a week went by, then another, doubt began to creep in. Maybe he changed his mind, she confided to Zoe as they sat on the front porch swing. Maybe the launch wasn't as impressive as they thought. Or maybe Elon Musk is just busy launching actual rockets into space, Zoe reasoned. Give it time. Meanwhile, other good things were happening. Her father received a job offer from a local engineering firm. The owner had seen the news about Jasmine's rocket and was impressed by Carlos's contribution to the project. "They want me to head their new product development team," he told the family over dinner, his eyes shining with disbelief. "The salary is better than what I made at the plant, and the work is more interesting." Jasmine hugged her father tightly. "That's amazing, Dad. I'm so proud of you." "I should be thanking you," he replied, kissing the top of her head. "If you hadn't built that rocket, I would never have had the chance to show what I can do." 2 weeks after the launch, Jasmine was doing homework at the kitchen table when her phone buzzed with an incoming video call from an unknown number. Her heart leapt, but she tried to temper her expectations. It was probably just another reporter wanting an interview. Taking a deep breath, she accepted the call. The face that appeared on her screen nearly caused her to drop her phone. Elon Musk himself, sitting in what appeared to be an office at SpaceX headquarters, with rocket models visible on shelves behind him. "Hello, Jasmine," he said with a slight smile. "That's quite a rocket you built in your backyard." Jasmine opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her mind raced with 1,000 things to say, but her voice seemed to have vanished. Musk's smile widened. "It's okay. I get that reaction a lot. Take your time." "Thank you," Jasmine finally managed, "for watching, for sending Mr. Thornton, for everything." "I started with model rockets, too," Musk said. "But nothing as advanced as yours at your age. Your fuel mixture was particularly interesting. Sugar-based, but with modifications for stability and thrust duration. Smart choice for a homemade rocket. He knew about her fuel mixture. Elon Musk had actually watched her videos closely enough to understand her technical decisions. Jasmine felt dizzy with the realization. "I did consider potassium nitrate," she heard herself saying, slipping into the familiar territory of rocket science. But the safety concerns with home manufacturing were significant. Musk finished for her. "Another good decision. Safety first, especially when you're working in your backyard." He paused. "Your attention to safety protocols after your initial setback was exemplary. Many young engineers would have given up after a failure like that." "My dad helped a lot with the safety improvements," Jasmine said. "Yes, I could see that in your videos. Good teamwork is essential in rocket development." Musk asked several more questions about her design choices, her calculations, and her recovery system. Jasmine answered each one, growing more comfortable. As the conversation continued, then he leaned forward slightly. "How would you like to join our student engineering program?" he asked. "We could use someone with your creativity and determination." Jasmine gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. "A student program? At SpaceX?" "It's a new initiative," Musk explained. "We're selecting promising high school students to work directly with SpaceX engineers on real projects. You would be one of our first participants." When the call ended 15 minutes later, Jasmine sat frozen at the kitchen table, her mind racing with possibilities that had seemed impossible just hours before. Then she jolted to her feet and ran to find her parents. "Mom! Dad!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the house. "You're not going to believe who just called." Jasmine's parents rushed into the kitchen, alarm on their faces from her shouting. Marco was close behind, nearly colliding with their mother as they crowded through the doorway. "What's wrong?" her mother asked, eyes scanning for trouble. "Nothing's wrong," Jasmine said, unable to contain her smile. "Everything's right. That was Elon Musk on the phone." Her father's eyebrows shot up. "Elon Musk himself? Not an assistant?" "Or, it was him, Dad," Jasmine confirmed. "We talked about Esperanza's design, the fuel mixture, everything. And he offered me a place in SpaceX's student engineering program." The kitchen erupted with questions. What was the program? Where would it be? When would it start? Jasmine shared everything she had learned during the call, her words tumbling out in excited bursts. The SpaceX Student Engineering Program was a new initiative that would allow selected high school students to work with professional engineers on actual projects. Jasmine would be among the first participants. The program included a full scholarship to attend a special science-focused high school in Brownsville, closer to SpaceX's Starbase facility. Brownsville? Her mother's excitement dimmed. "But that's about an hour away," her father finished. "Too far to commute daily." The room fell silent as the reality sank in. This opportunity meant moving, leaving their home, their friends, the only community they had ever known. "We'd have to think about this carefully," her father said, watching the hope fade from Jasmine's eyes. "It's a big decision for the whole family." "I understand," Jasmine said quietly, though her heart was sinking. After all this work, after coming so far, would geography be the obstacle she couldn't overcome? That night, she heard her parents talking in low voices long after Marco had fallen asleep. She couldn't make out the words, but the serious tone was clear. They were weighing options, considering possibilities, trying to find a way. The next morning, her father called Jeff Thornton, using the number on the business card. They talked for nearly an hour. When Carlos hung up, his expression was thoughtful. "The program includes weekend mentoring sessions at the actual SpaceX site," Hebrew told Jasmine. "But you'd attend school during the week." He paused. Jeff also mentioned that my new company has an office in Brownsville. He knows the regional manager there and says they might be able to offer me a transfer. Jasmine's eyes widened. Really? You'd consider moving for this? Her father smiled. For a chance like this? How could we not try to make it work? Over the next few days, plans began taking shape. Carlos contacted his new employer about the Brownsville office. To everyone's surprise, they were enthusiastic about the transfer, even offering a small relocation bonus. It seems your rocket is changing all our trajectories, her mother said with a smile, though Jasmine could see the worry behind her eyes. Leaving her nursing job, finding a new position, starting over. It wouldn't be easy. Marco was torn between excitement about living closer to rockets and sadness about leaving his friends. Will I still see Abuela? He asked, referring to their grandmother who lived just a few blocks away. Of course, their mother assured him. It's not that far. We'll visit often. As word spread about Jasmine's opportunity, she began receiving messages from girls around the world who had been inspired by her story. Some sent pictures of their own science projects. Others asked questions about how to get started in rocketry or engineering. You're making a difference already, Ms. Rivera told her after class one day. Not just for yourself, but for so many others who need to see that. Someone like them can succeed in science. Jasmine decided to start a weekly live stream where she would teach basic rocket science concepts and encourage other kids, especially girls, to pursue their interests in science and engineering. You don't need expensive equipment, she explained, in her first stream, which attracted over 1,000 viewers. Start with what you have. Learn the principles. Build small, then work your way up. And most importantly, don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. As the move to Brownsville approached, Ms. Rivera helped Jasmine prepare for the advanced classes she would take at her new school. The coursework will be challenging, she warned. You'll be with students who have been in accelerated programs for years. I'm scared, Jasmine admitted. What if I'm not smart enough? Ms. Rivera smiled. You built a rocket that flew over 3,000 feet using parts salvaged from a junkyard. You solved problems that would stump college engineering students. You've earned this, Jasmine. She squeezed the girl's shoulder. But remember, this is just the beginning of your journey. On their last weekend in McAllen, Mr. Delgado organized a small goodbye party in the school workshop, where Jasmine had spent so many hours. Teachers, classmates, and neighbors came to wish her well. Zoe gave her a friendship bracelet with small rocket charms. So you don't forget where you started, she said, tears in her eyes. I could never forget, Jasmine promised, hugging her friend tightly. The day before the move, a special package arrived from SpaceX. Inside was an official SpaceX jacket with Jasmine's name embroidered on the chest, and a note from Elon Musk. Welcome to the team that's building the future. The Reyes family's Iboidites' first visit to SpaceX's Starbase facility was scheduled for the Saturday after they moved to Brownsville. Jasmine could hardly sleep the night before, too excited to relax. The massive complex was unlike anything she had ever seen. Giant rocket components lay on their sides, dwarfing the vehicles and people around them. Engineers in SpaceX shirts moved, purposefully between buildings, carrying tablets and tools. A security guard checked their names against a list, then directed them to a visitor center where Jeff Thornton was waiting. "Welcome to Starbase," he greeted them warmly. "Ready for the tour?" Jasmine nodded, speechless with awe as they walked through areas where actual spacecraft were being built. She watched engineers testing components, technicians assembling intricate systems, and scientists analyzing data on large screens. Near the end of the tour, a female engineer approached. Her SpaceX shirt was faded, and her hands showed the calluses of someone who worked with tools regularly. "You must be Jasmine," she said. "I'm Elena Diaz, one of the propulsion engineers. I'll be your primary mentor in the program." Elena showed Jasmine around her work area, explaining the projects she would help with once the program officially began. "5 years ago, I was where you are now," Elena told her as they stood looking out at a Starship prototype gleaming in the Texas sun, scared but excited. "Keep that feeling. It will drive you forward." As Jasmine looked around at the massive rockets taking shape, at the people building them, and at her family watching her with pride, she felt a certainty settle into her bones. This was where she belonged. This was just the beginning. The Reyes family settled into their new life in Brownsville with a mixture of excitement and adjustment pains. Their new house was smaller than their home in McAllen, a modest 3-bedroom with faded blue paint and a tiny backyard. But it came with one feature that made Jasmine's heart soar: a detached garage that her parents immediately designated as her workshop. "It's not much yet," her father said, as they stood in the empty space on moving day, "but we'll get it set up properly." 2 days later, a delivery truck arrived with equipment Jasmine had never dreamed of owning: professional tools, a workbench, safety gear, and materials, all donated by SpaceX for her home workshop. "This is better than some college engineering labs," Ms. Diaz commented when she visited to help set everything up. "Elon wants to make sure you can continue your projects at home." School started the following Monday. The Brownsville Science, CISI's, Academy was nothing like Jasmine's old school. The building was modern, with bright hallways and classrooms filled with advanced equipment. Students wore simple uniforms, navy pants or skirts with white shirts bearing the school's Atom logo. On her first day, Jasmine stood frozen in the doorway of her advanced physics class, suddenly aware of how different everything was. The other students were already seated, many of them with tablets displaying complex equations. "You must be Jasmine Reyes," the teacher, Dr. Chen, said, with a warm smile. "Welcome to BSA. Please take a seat." As Jasmine slid into an empty desk, she felt the curious stares of her classmates. Word had spread about the rocket girl from McAllen, who had caught Elon Musk's attention. "Is it true you built a rocket from junkyard parts?" a boy named Tyler asked during lunch. Jasmine nodded. "Most of it, yeah. My dad helped with some of the welding and safety systems." "Cool," Tyler said, looking genuinely impressed. "My dad just buys me model rocket kits." By the end of her first week, Jasmine had realized something important. Many of the students at BSA came from wealthy families with parents who were already engineers or scientists. They had advantages Jasmine didn't have: years of expensive science camps, private tutoring, and family connections in the industry. During the first engineering club meeting, students discussed previous projects they'd completed. One girl had built a functioning robot arm. A boy had created a sophisticated weather prediction algorithm. Another had been working on computer simulations of rocket trajectories since middle school. For the first time in her life, Jasmine felt behind. Despite her success with Esperanza, there were gaps in her knowledge that her new classmates didn't seem to have. "I don't belong here," she confessed to her father one evening. "Everyone else knows so much more than I do." Carlos looked up from the dinner he was preparing. Since moving to Brownsville, he'd taken over most of the cooking while her mother worked evening shifts at her new nursing job. "Of course you belong there," he said firmly. "You earned your place. But the other kids have been studying advanced math for years. They've had private tutors and fancy computers, and none of them built a rocket in their backyard from scraps," her father interrupted. "That's why you're there, mija. Not because you already know everything, but because you've shown what you can do with limited resources. The next day at SpaceX, Jasmine shared her insecurities with her mentor during their Saturday session. Dr. Patel, a propulsion specialist who had joined Elena in supervising Jasmine's program, listened carefully. "You know what none of these other kids have?" she asked when Jasmine finished. "The experience of building a rocket from scratch using parts from a junkyard. That kind of problem-solving can't be taught in any expensive camp." Dr. Patel shared that she had grown up in a small village in India, where girls weren't expected to pursue science at all. "I had to work twice as hard as everyone else," she said, "but that made me stronger in the end." Jasmine took those words to heart. She began staying up late to study concepts the other students had learned years ago. She asked teachers for extra practice problems and spent her free periods in the school library, catching up on topics she had missed. Her first assignment, Saturn, the SpaceX student program, was to help design a small component for a test rocket, a sensor housing that needed to withstand extreme temperatures. Working alongside Elena and Dr. Patel, Jasmine applied the creative thinking she had developed during her backyard rocket days. The usual approach would be to use a more expensive alloy, Elena explained during one work session. "But we're trying to reduce costs without compromising safety." Jasmine thought about how she had solved similar problems with Esperanza. "What if we change the shape instead of the material?" she suggested, sketching a design that would deflect heat more efficiently. "Like how desert animals have features that help them stay cool." Elena studied the drawing. "Biomimicry in sensor housing. That's actually brilliant." Slowly, Jasmine began to find her footing. At school, her grades improved as she caught up in her subjects. At SpaceX, her unique approach to problem-solving earned respect from the engineers she worked with. 3 months into the program, Jasmine's team was entered into an internal SpaceX competition for innovative design improvements. Teams of engineers, including the student program participants, were challenged to find ways to reduce weight on a specific rocket component without compromising strength. Jasmine's team, which included 2 other students and Elena, took a risk by completely reimagining the component's structure. "It's unorthodox," one of the judges commented during their presentation, "but the math checks out." When the winners were announced, Jasmine could hardly believe it when her team's name was called. As they celebrated, she glanced across the room and noticed Elon Musk standing quietly in the doorway, observing the proceedings. When their eyes met, he gave her a small nod of approval before turning to leave. That simple gesture of recognition filled Jasmine with a sense of belonging stronger than anything she had felt before. The girl who had once been told that girls can't be rocket scientists was now helping design actual spacecraft components. That night, as her family celebrated her team's win with a special dinner, Marco looked at his sister with newfound admiration. "When I grow up," he announced, "I want to build rockets too." Jasmine smiled and ruffled his hair. "You can build anything you set your mind to, hermanito. That's what I've learned." 2 years passed in what felt like the blink of an eye. Jasmine, now 17, had grown both in height and confidence. Her once tentative voice in engineering meetings had become assured and respected. The girl who had once built a rocket from junkyard parts was now a key member of the student engineering program, with 3 successful SpaceX projects in her portfolio. Her family had flourished too. Carlos had been promoted to team lead at his job, overseeing projects that utilized the mechanical skills he'd refined while helping Hasman with Esperanza. Maria had found a position at a better hospital with regular hours, allowing her to be home for dinner most nights, a luxury they hadn't experienced in years. And Marco, now 12, was following in his sister's footsteps. building increasingly complex science projects that filled the shelves in his bedroom. "Look what I made," he announced one evening, proudly displaying a small robot that could navigate around obstacles. "It uses ultrasonic sensors, just like you showed me." Jasmine examined his work with genuine admiration. "The wiring is perfect, Marco. Better than my first attempt." Their parents exchanged a proud glance across the dinner table. Who would have thought that a homemade rocket would lead their family here? At school, Jasmine had risen to the top of her class in physics and engineering. The students who had once intimidated her with their expensive educations now sought her help with difficult concepts and creative problem-solving. "You see solutions no one else does," her physics teacher had noted during a recent evaluation. "That's not something that can be taught." But Jasmine's greatest achievement was still taking shape at SpaceX. For the past 8 months, she had been developing a special payload container, a system designed to make it cheaper and easier for schools and educational institutions to send small experiments to space. The idea had come to her during a visit back to McAllen, when Mr. Delgado mentioned how the school could never afford to participate in educational space programs. Most schools can't, Jasmine had realized. But what if they could? With Elena's guidance, Jasmine had pitched the concept to the SpaceX Educational Outreach Team. A standardized, compartmentalized payload system that could accommodate multiple small experiments on a single launch, drastically reducing the cost for each participating school. To her amazement, the project had been approved, funded, and fast-tracked. Now, after months of design work, prototyping, and testing, the payload container, which she'd named Pathfinder, was scheduled for its first launch. "This could revolutionize educational access to space," Elena told her as they completed the final safety checks in the SpaceX clean room. "Schools that could never afford to send experiments before will now have the opportunity." Jasmine's hands moved carefully over the container, securing the 6 small experiment pods that would fly with the upcoming launch. Each contained projects designed by schools across Texas, including one from her old middle school in McAllen. 10 experiments for the cost of what used to be 1, she said, pride evident in her voice. "And if this works, we can expand the program nationally." The night before the launch, Jasmine worked late at Starbase, making last-minute adjustments to ensure everything was perfect. As she was packing up her tools, she realized she wasn't alone. Elon Musk was also working late, reviewing data on a tablet as he walked through the facility. He nodded when he saw her. "Nervous about tomorrow?" he asked. "Terrified," Jasmine admitted. Though she had worked on other launches by now, this was the first time a project she had conceived and led would be going to space. "Good," Musk said with a slight smile. "That means you care about getting it right." He set his tablet down and approached her workstation. "But remember, failure is an option here. If things don't work out, we learn from it and build something better." Jasmine nodded, appreciating the wisdom in his words. At SpaceX, failure wasn't treated as something shameful, but as a valuable part of the innovation process. "I've been watching your progress since you joined the program," Musk continued. "You've exceeded expectations. This Pathfinder project, it aligns perfectly with our mission to make space more accessible." "Thank you," Jasmine said, still somewhat awed to be having a casual conversation with the man whose work had inspired her own journey. "I just want other kids to have opportunities I didn't have growing up." Musk nodded thoughtfully. "The best innovations come from people who understand the problems they're solving. You understand the barriers to space education because you face them yourself." As they parted ways, Jasmine felt a renewed sense of purpose. Tomorrow's launch wasn't just about proving her design worked. It was about opening doors for countless young minds across the country. Launch day dawned clear and bright. The Reyes family arrived at the viewing area early, joining other SpaceX employees and their families to watch the Falcon 9 rocket carry Pathfinder into orbit, along with its primary satellite payload. Mr. Delgado had made the trip from McAllen, with several students whose experiment was on board. Zoe had come too, wearing her faded Team Rocket Girl t-shirt from 2 years ago. Even Ms. Rivera had taken the day off to witness her former student's achievement. As the countdown began, Jasmine stood between her parents, her father's arm around her shoulders. The familiar anticipation built in her chest, that mixture of terror and excitement that came with every launch. T-10, 9, 8. Jasmine thought of the long journey that had brought her here, the backyard workshop in McAllen, the explosion that had nearly ended her dreams, the mysterious package of materials that had arrived just when she needed them most. 7, 6, 5. She thought of Esperanza, her first rocket, soaring into the Texas sky, the moment that had changed everything. 4, 3, 2. She squeezed her father's hand, remembering how they had rebuilt her project together after the setback, how her family had moved across the state to support her dreams. 1. Ignition. Lift-off. The Falcon 9's engines roared to life, pushing the massive rocket away from the launch pad with incredible force. The crowd cheered as it climbed higher and higher, leaving a trail of white smoke against the clear blue sky. Unlike her first launch, Jasmine now understood every stage of the E-Tour journey that would take Pathfinder to orbit. She knew exactly when stage separation would occur, when the second stage would ignite, and when her payload container would be deployed. 2 hours later, confirmation came through. Pathfinder had successfully reached orbit and deployed its experiments. Jasmine's design had worked perfectly. As her colleagues and family congratulated her, Jasmine caught sight of Musk watching from across the room, a look of quiet approval on his face. He gave her a thumbs up, then turned to speak with a group of engineers. In that moment, Jasmine Reyes, the girl who had built a rocket from scrap in her backyard just 2 years ago, knew that her journey to the stars had only just begun. Chati. Celebration following Pathfinder's successful deployment continued into the evening. SpaceX had arranged a small reception at the Starbase facility for the team members and their families. Engineers talked excitedly about the next phase of the project. Already planning improvements for Pathfinder 2.0, Jasmine stood in a corner, watching her parents chat with Elena and Dr. Patel. Marco was with Mr. Delgado's students, showing off a 3D model of the Pathfinder system on his tablet. This moment of triumph belonged to all of them. Everyone who had supported her, believed in her, and helped her along the way. "Enjoying the view?" Jeff Thornton asked, joining her with 2 glasses of sparkling cider. He handed one to Jasmine. "Just taking it all in," she replied. "Sometimes I still can't believe I'm here." Jeff smiled. "Elon asked if you could meet him in the conference room. There's something he wants to discuss with you privately." Curious, Jasmine made her way through the crowd to the glass-walled conference room at the end of the hall. Elon Musk was waiting for her, looking out the window at the launch pad where Falcon 9 had lifted off earlier that day. "Congratulations again," he said as she entered. "Today's success will open doors for thousands of students. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to develop it," Jasmine replied. Musk gestured to a chair. "Please, sit. I have a confession to make." Jasmine sat down, wondering what this could be about. "That anonymous donation you received 2 years ago," Musk began. "The high-quality materials that arrived when you needed them most? That was from me. Jasmine's eyes widened. You? But how did you even know about me back then? I was just a kid with a YouTube channel that had maybe 100 followers. Musk smiled. One of my engineers grew up in McAllen. He saw the local news feature on you and sent it to me. I watched your videos and saw something in you that reminded me of myself at your age. That complete belief that you could build something amazing, despite what anyone else thought. Jasmine tried to process this revelation. So, you've been watching me all along? Since before the launch of Esperanza? I've been watching your progress, Musk corrected her. But everything you've achieved, you did on your own. I just helped clear a few obstacles. He turned to his laptop and pulled up a file. There's something else I wanted to show you. Next year, we're sending a new mission to Mars. Each mission carries a small time capsule with names and messages, etched on a chip that will remain on the Martian surface for centuries to come. He turned the screen toward her. This is the list of names that will be included. Jasmine scanned the document, recognizing many famous scientists and engineers who had contributed to humanity's journey into space. Halfway down the list, she gasped. There, between the names of two renowned rocket scientists, was Jasmine Reyes. My name? On Mars? She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Your contribution to making space more accessible deserves recognition, Musk said simply. The Pathfinder project will inspire a new generation of explorers, some of whom may one day walk on Martian soil. It's fitting that your name should be there waiting for them. Tears pricked at Jasmine's eyes. From building a backyard rocket to having her name on Mars, it seemed impossible, and yet here was the proof before her. There's more, Musk continued. You'll be graduating high school next year. We'd like to offer you a full scholarship to study aerospace engineering at MIT, followed by a guaranteed position at SpaceX when you graduate. We want to invest in your future, Jasmine. You've shown what you can do, and we want to see how far you can go. Jasmine could hardly find words to express her gratitude. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep reaching for the stars, Musk replied, and that you'll help others do the same. As she left the conference room to rejoin her family, Jasmine felt as if she were floating. The shy girl who had once watched SpaceX launches on her laptop in McAllen was now part of the team making those launches happen. And soon, her name would be on another planet. She found her parents and shared the news about the Mars mission and the scholarship offer. Her mother's eyes filled with tears of pride, while her father embraced her tightly. I always knew you were meant for great things, he whispered. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Jasmine stood outside on the observation deck, looking up at the stars twinkling in the clear Texas sky. Mars was visible tonight, a small reddish dot among the countless white pinpoints of light. She thought about the long, unlikely journey that had brought her here, the junkyard parts that became Esperanza, the explosion that nearly ended her dream, the support of her family, who had given up everything to move for her opportunity, the mysterious materials that had arrived just when she needed them most, now revealed to be from Elon Musk himself. What would have happened if she had given up after any of those challenges? What if she had listened to those who said girls couldn't be rocket scientists? What if she had believed that a kid from a struggling family in McAllen couldn't possibly reach the stars? Jasmine smiled up at the night sky, her eyes fixed on Mars. The girl who built a rocket from junkyard parts would help build the future, not just for herself and her family, but for all of humanity, and someday, perhaps sooner than anyone thought possible, humans would stand on Martian soil and find her name there, a testament to the power of determination and the importance of believing in impossible dreams. That was the end of Jasmine's inspiring journey from backyard engineer to SpaceX innovator. Where are you listening from? I'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this account of determination, dreams, and reaching for the stars, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more interesting content like this. Don't forget to share with your friends and family to spread kindness and awareness about what young minds can achieve when given opportunity and support. Until next time, keep dreaming big and building your own impossible dreams.